Hi everyone, my name is Lydia, and let's talk about adulthood a little bit. Um, I get told a lot of the time that I look younger than my age, which, humble brag, I know, right? Humble flex. But realistically, I don't even know if that's a compliment. Like, I really just feel so detached from what that even means. Um, I don't know. I don't even know like what age people think I am. I'm 26 years old, and it is interesting because I think I've just really lost touch of what those things mean. Like looking your age, acting your age to a degree. Like, what does this mean to look 26? Because I am 26. And it's like, I remember growing up, I was told often that I was so mature for my age. So, like, oh, you're so mature for your age. And I knew how to talk like an adult. I knew how to play the game, I feel like. And I think being neurodivergent as well, like, I would hear adults saying, like, this is what we should do in society, or this is like what a nice person does, right? A nice person listens and is attentive. A nice person, a good person, asks further questions and is clear with their speech and all of this stuff. And it's funny, I just saw a TikTok last night that's kind of relating to this, but the girl on the TikTok was just sort of talking about how like neurodivergents take that so literally, and I'm like, yes, like I hear you, that's exactly it. And she was talking about how we hear these things growing up, these things like be honest all the time, and I don't know, be humble and be communicative with people, and you know this is how you say hello to somebody when you're passing them, and when you ask somebody how they're doing, like look at them in the eyes, like all this stuff. And she was saying in the TikTok that she wasn't aware that normal people, non-neurodivergent people, just sort of take that as like something to aim for instead of a this is how I have to be. It's sort of just like this goal, that this thing that is sort of unattainable sometimes. And I'm like, I never thought of it that way, because like I took those things so seriously as a kid. Like, this is how this is what a good person does, so I've got to do these things. And apart from looking people in the eyes, I only started looking people in the eyes as an adult because that was so hard for me as a kid. Like, I don't think people noticed that I didn't look them in the eyes because I was giving them literally everything else that they were looking for, like in terms of a dialogue, right? But it was so hard for me to look people in the eyes, and I would like usually look at like their nose or kind of around their eyes because I didn't want them to like be let on that I wasn't looking at them in the eyes. But I digress. I don't think that was the point of this, but yeah, like I took these things so seriously, and I was called, oh, I'm grown up. Oh, she's so mature for her age. I got that frequently. And I even knew how to talk to people over the phone in a way that made me sound like an adult. It wasn't uncommon for me to pick up the phone as a 12-year-old and people to be shocked that I was only 12. Um, you know, And I'm not saying this to be like, oh wow, how great, you know, like humble brag here. I really don't mean it like that. It's just, that's just how it was. It was very interesting. You know, but, and I don't think that's a humble brag is the thing. Like, I'm so glad that on TikTok people have been talking about this now, about how, a lot of us were called mature for our age when we were younger, and it like brings this like weird skewed idea of what it means to be a kid, you know. And I don't know, I just took on all of that like social responsibility because that's what I was told by teachers and, you know, adults growing up, that this is how I ought to be. And I just think that's really kind of interesting. And in contrast, I have a very young face. So it's like, I don't really know what that means. And I think at the end of the day, I've come to realize that I'm just me. I'm just me. Like, you know, and it is also like a weird like turn, or transition, that's the word I'm thinking of. A weird transition going from being told that you're mature as a kid to being an adult who no longer is told that they're mature because you're an adult and it's expected of you to be mature. And also paired with that I have for the first time ever delved into my inner child. And becoming aware of my inner child has allowed me to just talk the way that I wanted to talk. It's still really hard for me to go against societal ways of communication, like, or societal pressures when it comes to communication. Like, I just naturally fall into that because that's what I was told to be as a kid, even though I would like to work on that with myself, and I'm trying to work on myself about that because I don't want to be that way sometimes. Like, who says that I have to be that mature person, you know, that person who looks people in the eyes and talks to people a certain way and XYZ, you know. Where was I going with that? I don't remember, but maybe some dandy blend with cinnamon creamer will pep me up. Anyway, I think I know where I was going with that. That I now, as an adult, tapping into my inner child, I no longer want to adhere to that. And it is kind of interesting because I do kind of wonder if that is attributing to the reason people think I'm younger than I am. It might also be my face, like maybe there's something, a young quality about it. I don't quite understand it. I don't know, because I think people think I'm like I don't think people think I'm like young, like you're not a day over 21. I think it's like you're 13. Like, I think I think I'm giving extremely young, which is like ironic. It's ironic because then people thought I was mature when I was that age, and it's like, what? Like, what's going on here? It's like this weird role reversal. It's like, what's going on? Now I'm young. Now I'm okay. I guess it's not a bad thing, right? I don't know. I don't ask me. But I'm gonna take it as a positive. That's what I'll say. Is I'll just take it as a positive. But yeah, now tapping into my inner child, it's like I want to do away with those qualities that I felt I had to adhere to, that the rest of the world was not adhering to. Like, for real. The rest of the world doesn't care about how their communication is going, to the level that I care about how my communication is going. It's wild that like like this whole time I've been doing it when I don't have to, and now getting myself out of doing this is a bit of a challenge. And also within tapping into my inner child, I've been allowing myself to be more childlike. Like, okay, like I used to think that it was so important to to control my speech. How I'm talking is so important. And I used to believe that to my core, that like I, to the best of my ability, should come across in this exact way, XYZ. And when I am making a video, because I used to make videos when I was a teenager on a different channel, I used to really categorize it in my head and organize it in my head and be like, this is how I want to come across. And when I would talk to people, I really tried my best to be as thorough with my speech as possible. And you know, since toxic mold and severe adrenal fatigue and just the trauma, my mind has just been like having a harder time with my memory, one, but two, with like organizing my thoughts and stuff. And it's like why should I spend so much time pressuring myself to come across so it's kind of ironic actually, because this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like, I'm just like saying what I'm intending to say and hoping it gets out there in the right way. And I do think there is something quite beautiful about speech and how we can use it to our ability to say something important. And like, I think when somebody's making a speech or writing poetry or writing a story, this way of controlling speech and this way of organizing it and curating it to create something is so beautiful and impactful. And that can be the make or break for somebody's breakthrough, for somebody's moment of understanding your message, you know, is a simple little word, a simple way of phrasing something that really connects with somebody in a certain way. And I think that's all so valuable. But that being said, when I'm just talking, sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's okay. And you either get it or you don't. And that's also okay, because that's a part of my mind and my mental space at this time in my life. You know? And isn't that beauty? It's like a little time capsule. The way I'm speaking to you right now is a time capsule in my life. It's this space and this time in my life where I communicate my thoughts in this way. And maybe down the line, I won't communicate my thoughts in this way. I'll communicate my thoughts in a different way. And I'm almost positive that that will be true, because I'm constantly growing. We're all constantly growing and changing. And with change, so does our speech. Our speech changes. But yeah, like, even my videos, they are so much less curated. And I care so much less about how I'm coming across and the way that my words are forming. Especially since if I focus on it too much, it just gets jumbled. I'm a different person than I was then. I can't organize it as well as I was able to back then. You know, the toxic mold, it definitely did a number on my organizational skills and my memory. My memory was so crystal clear and sharp back then, and now it's kind of like this chaotic, jumbled mess. But there's something amazing about that, right? it's kind of turned me into more of a chaotic, messy artist rather than an artist that is super type A, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a different version of me. But there is irony there in all of that, because it's just, I was considered that mature child and teenager, and now people think I look very young. I'm not exactly sure how young people think I look, but they think I look young. It's like, oh. And maybe they think I act young. I don't know. I haven't gotten that comment yet. I don't want to. don't. I don't think I need that criticism. And I do think there's two sides to me. I am still a very mature person. I mean, what does that mean when you're an adult, right? I mean, I guess it does mean something, because there are also very immature adults, am I right? I would say that there are two sides to me, and I'm just allowing them both to exist, whereas I used to suppress my silliness and suppress my messiness. And it's like, I am a multifaceted person. I can be silly. I can use I can use a word that's not very commonly used, that sounds like a word that somebody would pick out of a word a day book, in the same sentence that I stumble and I don't know what I'm really saying, or in the same sentence that I use a rather silly word, right? I'm allowed to do that. But that's something that I definitely wouldn't have allowed myself to do before. And maybe these things all attribute to the fact that people think I look young. Maybe they also see my vibe now and they're like, wow, she also kind of acts young. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. It's like my inner child is representing itself visually as well. It's giving me sort of a youthful look. I'm just gonna go with that, right? There's just something to be said about being the mature child or the mature teenager who is now turned into the silly adult. The adult that allows their inner child to run free. There's something to be said about that. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about that, but yeah. It is interesting because years ago when I was researching, because I love axolotls, they are one of my favorite animals, and I know that's like, they're kind of like a trendy animal right now, I get it, but like, when I look at them, my heart melts in the same way that when I look at a greyhound, my heart melts. It's like this, aw, you know, that's like the only way I can explain it, but it's like that vibe. And when I research them, I'm so amazed by them. I just think they're the coolest creatures in the world. And when I've researched in the past what their totem means, like some people call them their spirit animal, or they'll be like, what's your spirit animal? But in reality, a spirit animal isn't a real thing. It's either a spirit guide or a animal totem. And I think people just kind of combine that and they say, what's your spirit animal? Which, you know, understandably. But typically when people say spirit animal, they're talking about their animal totem. And when I was researching axolotl animal totem, this was a couple years ago, so don't quote me on this. Not that you could, because, I mean, come on. Let's be for real. But it said something about how they, as people who are an axolotl totem, tend to be quite mature when they are infants, or when they're not infants, when they are children and teenagers. But then as an adult, it's sort of like they, I don't know if it used, I don't think it used the phrase like they tap into their inner child, but it was something about how they become a little bit more playful, and they like stick within this like teenage sense of wonder, or this like playful sense of youth once they reach adulthood. It's like they never fully transform into that like full adult, which, I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, you know. I mean, I don't even know if that's like fully what they were trying to say in the thing, but it was something along that line, and I was like, wow, just interesting how I am really tapping into my inner child. It just really kind of fit within what I was thinking about. And they say that because axolotls are sort of this like, I don't know if it's a nymph stage or if it's just like infant stage of a tiger salamander, I believe. And even though they are their own thing, they just never surpass in like adolescent stage. They never reach adulthood. That's what an axolotl is by nature, is they just never reach into that salamander morph. And yeah, so it's just kind of interesting. In contrast, I will say, there has been so many moments where I have fully realized that I am an adult. Like, even though I've gone through so many situations when I was a kid and a teenager where I was extremely mature, and I was making very mature decisions, and I you know, tried my best to always step up to the plate and do these things that were quite difficult. It was interesting because when I in 2021, I believe, got out of toxic mold and solved all of that issue, I ended up selling the house. And it was just interesting because the process of selling the house really, I mean, I was only, what was I? No, I was 21. So it was 2019? No. Yeah, I think it was 2019. Oh my gosh. I don't know. That doesn't feel right. I don't know. I was an early adult. I think I was only 21. But maybe I was older than that. See, my timeline is very skewed during the times of toxic mold. It just really messed with me. But either way, I was an early young adult, and I sold the house, and it required a lot of the skill sets that I obtain, a lot of the skill sets that I am naturally pretty good at. It were required of me during this time. And even though that was a very difficult situation, and it wasn't an ideal situation, and is actually, the whole thing was quite traumatic and a roller coaster of a ride, and it was really only our beginning, my mom and I's beginning of our journey from healing from toxic mold. I will say that when I sold that house, it really just dawned on me that I am an adult. Like, maybe that sounds crazy because I was already an adult at that point, but you know how like you exist as an adult for a while. You know, when you turn 18, you're like, I still kind of feel the same, and you feel the same for a while. I know that that's like an experience that a lot of people have, where it's like, you know, they'll be like in their 20s and they're like, I still feel kind of like I'm a kid in a way, and it's really hard for me to break out of that. It was weird because in that moment, even though I had been called mature my whole life, in that moment after I had like we had signed the papers, it was done, the house was sold, it was like, I'm an adult. Like it really just transformed me. So it's like interesting because like even though I was mature, like called mature my whole life and making these other decisions, it was like I just didn't really feel like I was an adult, because the truth is that I wasn't then. Like I was just called that by people. I still was a kid within me. I still was that person that was just being suppressed. And it wasn't until that moment when I sold the house that I was like, well, I am an adult. Now how do I find my inner child? It was like this like complete role reversal. And that's a different state to be in. To know that you were an adult, to feel like you're an adult. Like, I'm no longer a lady, I'm no longer a girl. I always feel awkward calling myself a woman. I was like, I'm a woman, but I'm a girl. Like, I'm a girl. Like, I'm a lady. Like, you know, I used to like those very playful, female, feminine terms for myself. I never liked to call myself a woman, and it wasn't until that day where I was like, wow, no, I'm a woman. Like, I'm an adult. And in doing so, really connecting with that aspect of me. Like, I am an adult woman, and I am leaning into that, but at the same time being able to be playful and access my inner child and my inner wonder that was never accessed before. It was almost like this whole transition. Very interesting, I guess. But it was just sort of my experience, and these are just sort of my thoughts about being that mature teenager and then transforming into, I guess, an immature adult. An adult who still plays Toontown, or I did when my laptop allowed me to. I'm still so annoyed at that I don't have a laptop that can play Toontown, but I loved Toontown. I still played Club Penguin. And allowing myself to have fun. Yeah. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Have a good day, you guys.